Hey, it's Dustin. I'm here with Nat Commons.
Hi, Dustin.
We together run the 200-hour yoga teacher training here at Warrior One Yoga. And today we wanted to chat about why yoga teacher training is such a big life-changing experience. I know for me, the first yoga teacher training I did it because I really wanted to know that I was doing the poses technically right. I came from a jiujitsu background, a very technical sport, and a lot of my teachers were talking about yoga in these like very esoteric, energetic ways, and like opening your heart should feel amazing. But to me, it made me kind of feel nauseous. And as I went through that process, yes, I was doing poses wrong, and I learned alignments. But more than that, I started to learn about the other 8 limbs of yoga and how that yoga is real science and a way of being. And the deeper I went into that, it started to make me realize that a lot of the things in my life or the ways of being that I was currently living were not ones that I had chosen. I had found patterns and habits that weren't actually in line with how I wanted to be. And I felt that yoga really opened me up, but made me more aware that I had choice in my life. And it was a different way of being that I could choose and create.
For me, when I did my teacher training, I started not so much as the gateway of the physical practice, because I had always had a very physical upbringing with dance and gymnastics and cheerleading, which had very similar postures and poses to the asana, the physical practice. But I realized when I started practicing, which I did my first vinyasa practice with you, Dustin, you were my first teacher, I started to feel something that I didn't recognize. And what I can now see that is I started to reconnect with myself, because I had kind of lost myself when I started practicing. I felt a little bit like a robot moving through life, working 80-hour weeks, giving everything to everyone else, that I'd kind of abandoned who I was and what I wanted and what were my beliefs and my values. So when I started practicing yoga, all of a sudden it wasn't a competition. I didn't have to prove myself, which was a bit weird at the start, because I was like, why is no one telling me off and giving me corrections that are trying to make me, stronger and fitter and the best, harder, go. And it was like, breathe. And so I started feeling, and I did at the end of a practice, I'd come out of Shavasana and feel kind of euphoric. And I wanted to know why. Why does yoga make me feel like this? And why is it making me change to become a better person? Because I like this. So when I signed up for my 200-hour teacher training, and I got to peek behind the veil of what yoga actually was, and I learnt that it was more than just a physical practice, which I'd kind of figured out on my own, which is why I was doing the training. But I started to learn about energetics, and I started to learn about philosophy and yoga as a way of being and living, rather than just showing up for an hour once a week or once a day, sometimes twice a day. And so that let me start to drop some of the masks and some of the facade that was myself, or the shell, or the robotness that I had created, so that I could start to open up different layers of self-discovery, but then I could also start to share them with other people. And what that gave me was choice. I got to learn what my values were, where I was out of alignment, and how I wanted to show up in the world. And so I did my teacher training and made a lot of choices to shift things so that I was living in alignment with my purpose, with my heart's desires, and finding ways to get back into my body.
I resonate with everything you said, because yoga is that. It just wakes you up to different waves of being that you were often not that you were unaware of them, but you just could never see yourself being in that way. You're like, this doesn't resonate with me. And I think that ability to choose how you want to be, how you want to live, and it comes from this embodied awareness that yoga teaches you and gives you a framework to go within and to go deeper and to actually have points of inquiry and be like, why do I show up in this way? Why am I always late all the time? What's going on with that? And other little random kind of little notes that have deeper kind of more subtle meanings behind them. And it wakes us up to that. Something I love is noticing these shifts in other people as well. And in this training, we get to watch other people have that same experience. And it's such a beautiful thing to be able to hold space for people and to watch the transformation that happens. I think one of the biggest things I notice is that people often come in a little bit reserved, a little bit shy, and to watch them open up and come out of their shells and start to shine is truly one of the greatest gifts of YTT. What do you notice?
Oh, it's such a gift. What I notice is people don't realize that it's more than the physical postures. And so they come in and it's almost like a brain explosion of there's philosophy and it's a way of being and there's a way of living. It's like I have a roadmap of how I can start to bring this off the mat and into my daily living, which is such a beautiful thing to have little guidelines or a framework to work by. And what I love about the way that we run our teacher training is that we focus on the student as a whole person. So it's not just learning how to teach and cue and to show up, which we do all of those things.
Lots of that.
But it's also about developing the student. So it's giving resources and tools and practicing them during the training, but also daily outside, so that you start to become embodied and you start to connect to, as you said before, how do I want to be as an individual person and as a human, but also how do I want to be as a teacher that is true and authentic to myself.
I think that's a big point. Like, we're not trying to create robots or carbon copies of ourselves. And what we are trying to do is really allow people to have a choice, to have a deeper connection to themselves, and from that embodied place, share this piece of them with the world in a way that they see is profound and interesting. And yoga is a beautiful avenue to do that. And the way it allows self-expression is actually amazing. And I know my favorite teachers, your favorite teachers, and you, the listener, your favorite teachers are embodied. You love them because they're human. You connect to them and they offer something, a glimpse of something in the direction that you're headed. They have an insight because they're a little bit further on the path than you, but they're so real. And I think that's one of the reasons I really connect with a teacher, is just that they're real, they're human, yet they're sharing something that is profound.
Yeah, and I found with that for myself, and I also know it's true for you, is that we're a student first and a teacher second. So we try and instill that in our students. It's continually practicing and continually showing up and working through whatever emerges, whether it feels happy and joyful and playful, or whether it feels sad or dark or anything else, because we have this roller coaster of emotions and feelings and life experience, and it's starting to learn how to accept it all. And so when we start to accept it all within a space of like-minded people who are loving, non-judgmental, and are willing to hear you and see you and hold you exactly as you are, which is what happens in the teacher training, it's life-changing.
Yeah, I think it allows people to be seen, and not to be seen as anything but themselves. And to have this safe space of like-minded souls where you can be vulnerable, you can shed a tear, you can laugh, you can just be you. And that is met with kindness and compassion. It's truly life-changing. It's really special. And it creates this beautiful container where connections deepen and people create lifelong friendships. It's interesting, the science behind creating best friendships. It says that, if you think about it in our adult life, we don't really go through growth experiences with our best friends or people like we did when we were in school. And if you think about your school experiences, often we have best friends that from primary school or early days, we went through so many life-changing moments with them that it creates a connection that's unbreakable. So this starts to happen on YTT, and I see that in all of our groups, that people create amazing friendships. But coincidentally, it takes 200 hours for people to form a best friendship or to have that connection with another person. And so it's pretty special that this happens at YTT.
Yeah. And you see it. Like, I would back the science because I see it and I would believe it. Because even looking back at the past, we're on our 9th teacher training at the moment, we'll be moving into our 10th. So being able to see all these students who are still best friends. You see them come into the studio and they run at each other and they're just like squealing and they're just jumping on each other because they love each other so much. And they have book clubs and they go to the wineries and go on wine tours, and the connections go so deep because they've spent such immersive, vulnerable, open time with each other that the connections are like no other. I know for myself that I'm still very much connected to the people I did my teacher training with, and I can call them about anything at any time and never worry about feeling anything but love.
That's so special.
It's so special. It's just something that you don't even think you're going to get when you sign up for a 200-hour teacher training.
Yeah, yoga is meant to tap you into your most innate state. And if you think of what that is, it's a state of childlike wonder. Joy and happiness just bubbles to the surface. And so we start to see that a lot. I think if 200-hour yoga teacher training is something that you're interested in, you should come and do it with us. We'd love to have you. Send us a message if you have any questions or contact the studio directly. Been nice chatting with you.
Thanks for having me.